back. If you're joining us again to the second episode in the Small Business Growth Series presented by CrowdSpring, I am joined by Payman, the CEO of Visme, who's going to lead us through today's topic. If you haven't heard the beginning, the first episode, we will have that recorded and sent out to everybody who registered. We talked about how to build a brand identity, how to build a strong brand, and we did some reviews of actual websites from some of the registrants, providing a lot of value and really a hands-on example. So now we're going to continue that topic of branding and visual design with Payman. So CrowdSpring actually used Visme for our logo, our image for this webinar series. It was actually the first time that we used it, so I think that's a nice testament to how easy it was to jump into it. I'll let Payman kind of introduce Visme, but we've used Canva before. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Canva. We've used that for CrowdSpring. I mean, we're a custom design business, but there's many times when we just want to jump in and quickly build something ourselves, and so we like some of these tools that are quick. We use Canva, but we didn't like it, right? And so what I love about Visme is it's the stuff you like about Canva, but focused on business, right? And Payman will get into some of that. But what I love about Visme, their tagline, when you can't be trusted with a box of crayons, right? I think that's a simple way to introduce Visme, that it's really simple for business owners who are trying to figure out, how to get started building a consistent visual identity. So Payman, glad to have you here. Right. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Everybody, my name is Payman. I'm the founder of Visme, and I'm very excited and happy to be here today to present to you, because anytime we talk about design, I get excited about it. So I'll give you a little bit of background as far as me and as far as Visme, as far as why is Visme around, what is it all about. And hopefully by end of this webinar, you walk away with some great tips that you can use pretty much in almost any tool that you're already using, or perhaps it might be in Visme if you feel that's something that might be worthwhile for you. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in just a moment. I've got a presentation that's created in Visme, and I will also, I kind of wing these things when I go through it as I get ideas and suggestions, and I also look at the chat here and there. I will be able to, kind of give you some actual live tips. Even apply them right into my slide that I was just working on earlier today and last night. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just a little bit. It'll take just a moment. And also what I may do is I may actually turn off my own camera, because that way I have the maximum amount of bandwidth going to the video. So I'm assuming you guys are seeing my screen. Let me go ahead and turn off my camera. I think there we go. Alrighty, here we go. So let's talk about visual brand strategy. Let me go ahead to my first slide and refresh here. All right, going full screen. Okay, so today's topic that I'm going to present to you is about essentials and the best practices for a winning visual brand strategy. So what does that all mean? When we talk about brand, a lot of small businesses or individuals think of it as their logo, but a brand encompasses everything, encompasses your colors, your font, your text, and even the messaging that you use. It's all together as a part of one. But today's focus, we're going to be mostly focusing on the actual visual aspect of it, of your branding. So this is talking about the material you create, the designs, the posts, everything. If you notice, for example, when you look at Coca-Cola, you look at the logo of Coca-Cola, you look at IBM, without even, knowing perhaps that the ad or the post is going to be about them, the color gives it away. You're like, oh, that's the IBM color. Oh, well, that red is probably the Coca-Cola color. The same thing with the fonts and so on. So these are all part of, creating a very strong brand. All right, so let's go through here. And I'm going to be presenting. I've got about 19 slides, but I'm going to be hopping in and out of it. Of course, first off is, why should you listen to me? Who am I? Give you a little bit of a quick rundown of it. I'm the founder of Visme, but the way I got into Visme was that I ran a web agency back in 2001, many, many years ago, to pay my way through college. I started with pretty much nothing and just I'm a self-taught designer. So I don't really go to school for it. I was a biology major out of all things. And, over the years, creating a lot of different websites back in the day, using Flash. I don't know if you guys remember that, Adobe Flash. Any of you remember it? Go put it in the chat. I mean, you pretty much have to be, I think, your late 30s or early 40s to remember what Adobe Flash was at this point. It's been a long time. But all those interactive animated sites, all those intros that you saw, everything that was moving on the web was based on Flash. And then Apple came about and no longer supported this plugin. And so long story short, it really impacted my business, where a lot of the websites that I was creating was based on Flash. And so the way Visme came about was kind of an experiment out of my web agency to create interactive content, create this one platform that non-designers can use to create not just the ordinary, such as static graphics and so on, in presentations, but interactive, engaging content. So our platform allows people, and again, there's over 12, I think it's actually 11 million global users now, and they're all over the place. We have leading Fortune 500s using it, and we have individuals and students and educators, businesses from all walks of life that use our platform, and they use it because it gives them a perfect balance between a very simple design tool and then yet powerful features that you would find in, let's say, a really great tools such as Adobe Photoshop and some of the others out there. So we are kind of bridging the gap between the simple and limited and the very powerful tools that professionals use. So we are bridging the gap between that to give people the best of both worlds. So let's talk about visuals a little bit more. The human brain. Our brains, we are used to processing visual information faster than text. I think that's kind of evolutionary because you think about it, going back to our ancestors, everything was in drawings, right? Glyphs and hieroglyphics, as far as the ancient Egyptians, you think about it, everything was based on symbols and visuals. And so we still are attuned to learning things by just the appearance of them. And so it just happens that now we're constantly inundated with lots and lots of graphics, and the graphics are no longer just symbols. They're more complex. They're, not just photos, but they're a combination of photos and text and imagery and icons. And then add a layer dimension to that is interactive animated content. So we're inundated with stuff all the time. So how does your brand and how do you survive, or I guess stand out against your competitors? And of course, this very busy social online medium that we call the internet already. So, however, one thing is common is, and you think about the evolution, a lot of social media platforms such as Twitter used to be only text-based. Then they introduce images and now they support video. So all different types of platforms, more and more attuned to visual content. So really at the end of the day, what's going to move the needle is, allowing your audience to participate and sink into the material so that they have a great experience and they can engage with you. Let me go ahead and get my mouse here so you can see my mouse moving. Okay, there we go. Now, next slide. Alrighty. So one of the biggest challenges that small business owners face, or this can even be individuals, even sometimes in larger companies, is about creating great looking marketing assets on their own without always having to depend on a professional designer. A tool such as ours is actually not there to replace or get rid of designers. We kind of create the medium. Designers want to focus on creating beautiful content. They want to focus on creating the higher end type of items versus just constantly editing a slide of a presentation for their, let's say, for their customer and so on. They want them to be able to do it themselves, but they want to be able to create that, the foundation. And so we actually are there to supplement that. And in case of the small businesses and organizations, is to give you this platform where you can do 90% of the things on your own. And once in a while, you can, of course, depend on the designer for the very top-notch things. So, at the end of the day, if you want to scale your business or your company or your nonprofit, you got to reach your target audience. We all have target audiences. In case of Visme, we actually have a very big challenge. Our challenge is that our audience are from all over the world, from all walks of life, speak different languages, different age groups. I mean, how do we target them? They all have one common denominator, and that is that they want to create beautiful content in different formats, presentations, infographics, documents, and so on. But so what we do is we focus a lot on the visual aspect of things. At the end of the day, we are a design platform, but we try to speak their language. So we show them beautiful templates and elements and designs that they can utilize in their specific use case or industry. Okay. Let me actually go and see if there's any questions that I can answer real quickly. Okay, so far, by the way, if you guys have any questions, I will answer them a little bit later on, but I will come back every so often to the code and see what's going on with the chat. Alrighty, so, if you want to scale your business, and I think I mentioned it earlier, you got to, target your audience, speak their language. Let's go to the next slide here. Now, today, not speaking about 10 years ago, most of your audience are online. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? And, so you got to stand out. And I'm going to give you an example in just a minute. I'm going to actually go to my own social channel, and you'll see that how inundated I am with content and with posts all the time, and which one actually captures the imagination. Now, on average, and this is actually true for myself, and maybe you think about yourself, you spend only about under 2 seconds with a piece of content before scrolling. So we're talking about, let's say, social posts, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. And so, when it's so competitive and so crowded, and there is so many posts constantly being posted, how does the one stand out? The ones that are, less visual, they have a tendency to get lost in the shuffle. Now, that is not to say that you can't do posts that storytelling is extremely important. Stating the facts and research and data, those are all important. It's just that when you utilize and support them with visuals, you have a higher engagement rate. That's basically the walkaway you want to do from it. But then when it comes to creating that, there's a major challenge. How do I create that? So let me show you an example. Okay, so here's my feed, actual feed right now. And so as I'm scrolling through, see almost every post, see this one, very little engagement, very low. And again, this is not where just because there's a photo, there's a lot of likes, but essentially though, if you see, there is a lot of posts that are supported with visuals. All right, this one, it's a white background against a white background with text. So not very good. And maybe that could have potentially had a little bit more of engagement. It had a little more of a rich image. So storytelling through visuals, the message is important, but also support that with the visual itself. All right, let's keep going. Now, let's talk about a few different elements: colors, topography, and consistency. Let's touch on those a little bit. So even if you're a non-designer, which is basically 90% of our audience and 97% of everybody else that is, on social media or any professional, you got to understand the basics, and it's actually not that difficult. So I'm going to walk over a couple of them. When it comes to color, understand the basics of color theory and how it's applied in online marketing. Colors can exude a different type of attitude or emotion. At the same time, different colors don't match with each other. You can't go wrong with black on light gray or white on black, for example, but you could go wrong with, yellow, for example, over a light green, you see. So, and then the importance of psychology of color, every color has a positive and negative connotation. So depending on the particular tone, shade, or the tint of use. And that is something that is very important to just understand the basics of it. Let's talk about typography. You don't want your fonts to clash with each other. And easy, simple tip. And by the way, these are actually in Visme. We have font pairs. We've already matched fonts. You can just drag and drop the font pairs and just change the text. And if you notice, we're not using more than 2, maybe maximum 3 fonts. And you want to follow that philosophy. If you're creating, let's say, 20, 30, 50, 100 slide presentation, stick to 2 or 3 fonts through the entire design. Do not change, do not try to introduce new fonts here and there. Stick to those 2 or 3, and those are the ones you use. Use a font for your header, the same one every time, and the same color pretty much every time. Use for body text, use a certain font that always is the same size. So be consistent and just stick with 2 or 3 fonts. It's a very simple a tip, but you'd be surprised with how people just kind of get a little bit too creative with it. And then consistency. You see how these 3 graphics in 3 different sizes, these are just 3 templates in Visme, but you could have your own. You might have your own different designs you create, but regardless of what medium you go, follow the similar color. So let's say, you see the Visme brand here. We got the dark, it's not black, but it's like a very, very dark blue tone. And we got the blue, we use that always for our buttons right there, that blue button, the blue color, the light blue. This often is our background or is a white. And then we use these accent colors. and we use them here and there into our design. So if I see, there's the red used here. There's a reason for that. But you just remain consistent regardless of which medium you use. You're creating a website. Well, you have a few colors. Those similar colors that are primarily should be followed through your other designs as well. And in fact, there's something very interesting. You're actually one of the first to know that. Very soon, we are rolling out this amazing feature that for months has been developing, where any brand, any site owner, or any logo owner, so any business basically, can go into Visme. This is launching in a matter of a couple of weeks. And you'll be able to just literally enter your domain name, and we will generate tens of beautiful pixel perfect templates with your fonts, with your colors that reflects your logo on your website. It's amazing. Nobody else has done it the way we're doing it, and it's going to be a really cool feature. So stay tuned for that. Let's keep going.
Payman, can I interrupt you real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned, if we go back to that last slide real quick, because I want to dig into this a little bit more with you about the why for the consistency, right?
Sure.
So I fully agree with you. When we look at small business websites, we see sometimes you'll scroll through the social media feed and you'll see different colors, you'll see different fonts, you'll see different uses of the product or the subject matter, and we know it doesn't look right. And especially when we look at somebody like a Nike or Starbucks and we say, oh, theirs looks beautiful and it's consistent because they're a huge brand. They've got designers and people that can focus on this. And what you're saying is no, it doesn't matter how big you are, you should still have consistency. What's the reason behind that? What's the why? What's the benefit to me as a business owner?
Yeah. So first of all, it's about being organized, right? And we think of it as being organized. If you have, let's say you wear a certain attire, you're going to kind of stick and be consistent with those. How many different colors do you need? To, let's say, if I'm going to, let me back up. That probably wasn't a great example. That probably wasn't. Here's how I would think of it. Over time, your business will be associated with certain colors and certain fonts and certain text. Now, for a very big company, you'll be recognized all the world and so on. But you got to remember that they all were small at some point as well. And the other part is that there's this emotional attachment. You see, when you are consistent with your colors and with your fonts, typography in this case, and even with this style of icons and so on you're using, then what happens is the brain of the viewer is not so focused every single time on trying to understand, unravel what those elements, supporting elements are. So if you see, imagine if the slide that I've got here that I'm presenting to you today, there's a certain consistency on it, consistency. You'll always see this or this color as a background, pretty much all around. Why is that? Because after a couple of slides, your brain is just focusing on the messaging. You're no longer paying so much attention to that. It's there, it supports it, but it's now in your subconscious. So imagine every slide that I went in was a completely different color. Every single time, different font. You have a hard time understanding the messaging, the story I'm telling. It's the same thing with your brand. I hope that gives some clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you guys want a little bit more clarity or something, post a message in the chat and we'll dive in a little bit more.
Alrighty, good. So let's keep going to the next slide. A great question, by the way. Alrighty, so the types of engagement boosting visual content, because we're talking about visuals and consistency in general, but what are some of the types of tips that I can provide you that you can actually boost engagement? Engagement, social, clicking on a link, liking, commenting, that's engagement on a website, clicking on a CTA, call to action, going to a forum, filling it out, and so on and so on. So those are all basically types of engagement that you're doing. Or it might just be if it's a short video and people engaging because they see from the very beginning to the end, or they read the whole story from the start to the end. So let's talk about those. Alrighty, let's talk about photos. Here's actually a few photos here. Very popular, of course, this photo and that one. And this one, I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's probably ice cream, but it was picked. It was randomly picked. But photos in general, they allows you to contextualize your content. They make it a little bit easier to understand. So again, it almost serves as a background. Imagine if I was doing a post, and you could actually use photos a lot as abstract, where it's just there to kind of support the messaging, but doesn't really completely support it. And the thing that's a mistake a lot of times people make, for example, they might have a message and say, hey, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And then they might go in and put 1,000 words and trying to relay that. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a background of a desert, and it could have a tree with many leaves on it to represent that. it could be that. So the photos in general, again, it is just a contextualized content. Sometimes it can be as an abstract, but it does allow things to be easier to understand. I think you see some examples as I go through. Also, the other thing would be series and themes. Okay, so if you look here, here's 3 posts. This is by the Well and Good podcast, credit to them. And if you see here, remember consistency, look, light, dark, light, but this color is here and this dark is there. It's consistency. They're flipping the colors, what it is. And notice that they're always taking, the logo is always in the same position. Notice the photos is always round and they're in a certain corner. So there's consistency among that, but we're talking about series and themes. So series 1, series 2, series 3. So this is like 1 of 5. This should be actually 2 of 5, 3 of 5. So this could be a Facebook post, for example, right? And so that allows you to actually tell a story through a few different visuals. But again, you keep things consistent. Let's give you another example. So what about maps, illustrations, and charts? In fact, one of the things about Visme, these are all 3 templates actually inside Visme. You see that map I'm hovering over? That's a map feature. We have a complete map engine in Visme. And here's, we have these animated characters and so on. Maybe I'll drop one in a few minutes. But again, at the end of the day, telling stories through visuals, and a lot of times that's through data. So this can be data visualizations. So here's a chart. And this is a funnel chart in that case. I think there's another name for it I can't recall. And here's another one here. This is the actual US map. This is talk about the coronavirus cases. This is a little bit of old data, but gives you an example. And so by just simply looking at this, I know that there's my legend. Those are 100K cases. So right there, California had a lot, and then New York and so on, high population. And then so you go through, and that really quickly allows you to absorb information. So it allows you to represent complex relationship patterns. Imagine if you took all this information, the 50 states, and you had a long table with all their stats. Well, would you really quickly know that these are the states with the highest number of cases? No, it would take you a lot longer. That's what those are for. All right, so it's just to take a lot of information and simplify it. In terms, it can be a chart, it could be a map, it could be data visualization such as this one. This is an infographic that allows you to really quickly, here's an anatomy of a writer. This could be a 1-page document, a lot of bullet points, but it's easily, quickly represented. So you can also explain parts of an object, and that's what this is. In this case, we're taking a writer and we're just dissecting her into different elements. Arms, they reach 4 stories set to close. So that's basically another example there. Okay, let's see what we got next. Data and visual stats. So similar thing as I mentioned before. Here's basically 3 different stats compared to each other. These are data widgets in Visme. You can drag and drop and set the percentages like 38%, 55%, and 7%. So basically adding these up. And these are the type of stats that often we share and others do, and they actually get great engagement because you take very simple data and you visualize it. So here's another example as well. So you take these data stats and they're great for posts. Okay. Oh yeah, there's some of our animated characters and so on in Visme. All right, so characters, look, you might come from the corporate world. Who says that it always has to be boring? I mean, you can break the ice a little bit with some engagement or some fun stuff. So, they allow you to make your content more human. It also gets a little bit more fun and a little bit more intimating. You kind of can't help but to take this slide with a grain of sand, like, hey, that's pretty cool, or it's got some engagement. Well, we actually use them in very specific cases in Visme. Maybe I can do that if I have time to go through the tool. Another one, of course, animations and GIFs. So this is a GIF that was created and actually posted on our social media. This was done entirely with Visme. But again, we were telling a story as far as features of Visme. And this is a little GIF that was created. And so it's a little bit more dynamic than photos because in this case, it will be looped on the social media. We keep replaying. And it also keeps your audience engaged. So, we're going from static elements to interactive as well. Okay, so let's do this one. All right. Oh, let me go back to the last slide. Sorry. Let me go in. Sure.
Platforms accept kind of these animated interactive graphics?
So social media platforms, yes and no, in that GIFs, for example, yes, and MP4, yes. So I'm going by memory here. Facebook, for example, supports both. LinkedIn, and I'm going by memory here. One of them auto plays on LinkedIn. The other one you actually have to click play. I think the GIF will auto play if I recall correctly. So yes, they support. Most of them support it. I think all of them at this point support video. Maybe somebody's going to correct me in the chat. But for example, for us, if we're doing videos, then we would use that into Facebook, sometimes on LinkedIn. We do post on Instagram, but we do it less as video. I can't remember why. I think we had decent engagement with just photos as well. And also photos take a little bit less time to create than videos. Of course, that with our platform changes a little bit, but sometimes we look at how much more engagement certain media get. But Instagram tends to be decent with just stat photo, with simple photos. All right, so the benefits of leveraging interactive content. So intrigue, joy, and understanding. And this one, I think I've got a click-through action that I did incorrectly. Let's see if I can get this to pop up. Oh, there we go. Better retention of the information. So this is actually hover effects that you can do in Visme. So I can set a pop-up, like hover over and so on without any coding. So this is another way of engagement. Now we're talking about outside of social. So for example, in Visme, we may create content. And then it might just be like the slide, and then we link it to the Visme. And I'll be happy to actually share the URL here. I'm going to go ahead and put this URL right now into the chat for you guys. If I don't remove the S16, it knows I'm on. So that's the actual presentation. And I believe everybody with the link can view it. If you can't, let me know. I will open that up because we sometimes set things to private or public. Let me go back here, talk about the next thing. And I'll show you some of this interactivity so you can see that it's pretty easy to do. So why interactive content can be daunting? All right, well, let's see here. One, it can be complex, right? And number two, interactive content itself can be complex. So that's three. And then third one is, more companies are creating interactive online experiences. The bar is high. You can't just get away and say, well, I'll move object from left to right just because I call this interactive. I mean, it also has to have a certain appeal to it. It has to look nice. It shouldn't be too in your face where you can't focus on what the focal point is, what the message is. If you look at this, for example, the only elements that are animated, for example, is here because I want your attention to be here. Everything else is not just moving all around. There's a very good reason for that. So subtle is actually key as well. You focus on the key points. Interactive content, what is it and what's the applications of it? So, this is interactivity, right? It requires the user to engage, to actually click and see something show or disappear if you roll away. That can be in a form of pop-ups, hover area, which is what this one is actually, I think, is a click. They're clicking, but you could do as hover as well. Like on websites, you hover over objects all the time. And in here, I'm actually doing that right now. I'm actually clicking it. And then also sometimes it can be interactive data. So you show data such as charts I showed you, which you hover over and it gives you like different stats and so on. And then what's the applications of it? Okay, so for example, in presentations, which is what I'm doing right now, this is somewhat of an interactive presentation, right? Because I'm clicking and I'm showing you things instead of having to constantly go back and forth between slides. And then even yourself, you'd be able to go in and view it as well. Now, the presentation that I sent you, this is made for me to interact with. So you might get to certain slides and you might see all the objects, but that's actually on purpose because I'm engaging with it. If it's sent to for like consumption, we would set it up a little bit differently so that the user can engages with it. And so presentations, you want to allow your viewers to engage and self-navigate. In this case, I click and then I see this information, right? So I absorb or I understand, okay, applications, then I click. So that kind of a actionable element is almost a learning point, versus you just imagine I came to this slide and all of this information was here right at the beginning. It's, you read through, what is it, applications, all this text, what am I focusing on? But not showing you anything but these 3 points. You absorb that, you retain that information, then I'm talking about applications. So now peel back the curtain to learn about the specific items. Now I'm focusing on applications, right? So it's easier to understand. And that's why it's so important. When you're creating information, you can also utilize the power of interactivity to do that. Infographics. So these are a couple of infographics here. It's actually like this one is taller. This thing would go for a lot further. So in Visme, people create infographics. They can be pretty tall. They can be a single page and be long as they want it to be. And it's like a presentation, but you're able to show comparisons. You see, like this is a timeline. So this timeline can go from year to year to year, and it can go down lower. It allows you to be able to present information that way. So it's great for data dashboards and reports. You could do customer success plans. So for example, here's an example here. You could do flow charts and diagrams. So here's an example like org charts and so on. In fact, my sales team uses it all the time. If I want to create, let's say, a customer journey, they go in Visme and it will literally like put a little icon and then a customer journey and like, okay, if they do this, then we want to take them to this funnel. And if they answer this email, and if they don't, then let's, send in this email. So they actually create this customer journey in Visme, and then they send it to like engineers and like, okay, look, this is what we want to develop. And so the project plans and of course storyboards as well. There's many different ones, but there's a different thing. It's a question sometimes we get is, what is an infographic? Why should I create that? And so we find that a lot of times people create presentations, such as we've done here. And other times they create infographics. And a lot of people that are just PowerPoint users or traditional presentation creators, they end up over time creating a fraction or sometimes even more of their designs as an infographic. The infographics are, because they're very tall, like they can be as long as you want to be, so the user scrolls down. Great to embed into a website, for example. So these are great to like paste into a website. They're also great if you want to download as a PDF and send it over. So just be one very tall, PDF document. So it's not like page by page. But again, the use cases I provided here, it's something that you can explore for yourself. Alrighty, coming to an end here, a couple of things. So again, guys, thank you. I'm going to show you some more stuff. Of course, this is the end of the presentation. So here's another interactivity. Go to slide 1, I click, and I'm going to be back at the beginning of the presentation. Now I'm going to take any questions we have, perhaps because I want to actually go inside the tool. I've got the presentation open for you. So maybe for a minute and see if there's any questions, but hang in there because I want to add some interactivity engagement to show you how easy it is. You can actually do that yourself. You don't have to think about, oh, do I have to learn coding? How complex is it? Is the learning curve very high? So I'll give you some of those perspectives in just a minute.
Yeah, so I've got a question, and Michelle's got a question
at the moment.
Looking forward to jumping into the more interactive second half. So it'll be exciting. All right, so let's start with Michelle's question. I've read it a little bit, and to give you a little bit of context, Michelle was on our prior webinar this morning and participating, and we were talking about branding and visual identity, and we're continuing that conversation, which is perfect right now. So, Michelle's getting some excitement here and a little bit of overwhelm, it sounds, as well. She's learning things about the brand and might want to make some changes based on what we've both been talking about. And she's asking you, where do you start? Do you make everything at once, kind of, start working behind closed doors, take some time off, and then blast out all the changes and potentially, get customers a little uneasy with all the changes? Or do you start making subtle changes as you're working towards there? So what's your opinion?
Yeah. So Jason, would this be a question around a complete branding change, or are we talking about, let's say, starting to create more engaging content and,
so Michelle,
let's say, posting them on your social or to your audience?
And provide a little bit more context for payment. I think it's a little bit of both, right? It's like you're thinking you might want to get to that rebrand. You might be seeing challenges, but you're trying to figure out, how do you, but the little things can be changed now. So I know I need to change my social media. I should start here. I may 6 months want to change. Michelle's providing some comments here. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I saw her comment. Michelle Wheeler. So here's if there's something that I've learned personally in business over the years is this. So for example, I'll give you an example of our website, and this is from a global aspect. And we have a pretty big website made up of thousands of pages of templates and landing pages and so on and so on. In 5 years ago, we would be like, okay, look, we have a new branding. Let's go ahead and revamp the entire website, everything all at once, and do that. Well, things are a little bit different now. You want to know why? Because, for example, in our case, we get a lot of traffic. We get a lot of organic traffic. And we found that, hey, if we go and make a quick drastic change across our entire website, all the pages, suddenly, 2 things can happen. One, often, actually, it's a negative impact on the organic, which, we get a lot of. And then second, we can't say for sure. It might look good to us, but we can't say for sure if the audience, the viewers, are going to engage better with it. So what we do is we actually A/B test it. We may launch a landing page. one page, complete rebranding, put that up, and then we measure and say, how is this behaving versus, the A versus a B. But this is a little bit maybe above beyond what you're asking, but I'm giving you an example. The short answer is you don't have to wait to get it all out all at once. You want to actually test the waters a little bit. Just because you think the graphic that the work, looks great, doesn't mean that let's go spend the next 3 weeks and create a series of 20, 30 social graphics so that we can post them left and right for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then we'll look back and see what happened. That's not what I recommend. I recommend is that you create some posts, you create some graphics, and you actually post them. Maybe you even put it in front of the audience. Hey, here's 3 different ideas. Which one do you think you like better? What do you think? Do you like the A version better or the B or the C, and see what the feedback is? Or maybe you don't even ask that. You post the same message 3 times with 3 different graphics, color schemes, and so on. You see which one has a better reaction as far as engagement and so on. And based on that, you could then start scaling up and doing more of those. That's what I would recommend versus just taking a bite and then doing it. That's a little bit against branding, branding in general, where you say, adjust your entire branding and do that. But that's where you've got, the very large companies, organizations, and behind the scenes, they've done all the focus groups, all the testing, and suddenly one day you wake up and everything's different. It didn't just happen one day and they woke up, did that. They did that. So you may not have those resources, and this is the way that I suggest you go about it. So I hope that answers that.
Especially when you're getting feedback from your clients, right? I think that's helpful. I think you're trying to be the leader. So I think, you want, as Payman mentioned, you're proposing, the graphics to get their feedback on. You're not asking them to create them or for them to write your brand messaging. But no, great question. Payman, 2 questions from my side. One, it looks like when you shared that link, we don't need any special software for Visme, right? So if I'm creating a presentation for investors or for my bank or business partners, I can just send them the link and they don't have to download something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let me show you just as an example how this works, right? Let's just say that, I'm jumping the gun. You've created your presentation. It's ready to go. I'm actually inside the platform. It almost looks like some of the other tools, like you got slides and you go in and do that. Our platform, the interface is the same. Like if I was doing a document, it'll just be documents here. If I was doing a social graphic, I probably wouldn't have even pages, but this is a slide. So let's say I'm done. 2 ways. You can share by one, I could present it live to you right now. Okay. And so I could be right now present without even have to send you a link. In this case, I wouldn't have even published it, right? It's just for my internal use. The other one is download and share. So downloading, you can, a lot of times people are still really sold on the fact that they have to download. I would only download for a couple of reasons. One is if you want to send it to print, because you can create flyers and so on. You want to send it to print. So that would be that. Or you want to generate a PDF, let's say. Another one will be is because you want to post it on social media. Although Visme soon is going to have its ability where you can actually post directly to your social media right within here. You can schedule it, but you might want to download it. So, hey, I create a little video. I want to go to video and I can download it. And then I'll get the MP4 file and I can go post it. So that would be, or you can present offline. So people actually create presentation in Visme and they're like, I'm going to download this PowerPoint. I don't really recommend it, but they're just so old school that they have to, or they may have a corporate requirement. And why do I recommend it? Because it won't retain all the interactivity that we give you. It becomes a little bit more of a flat presentation. You can still edit it, you can still make it editable, but it's not going to be as interactive. You can download as HTML5. For those of you that are non-coders, don't worry about it. All it does is gives you like a little zip file, stick it on your local, and then you can open it offline and you'll be able to have all the animation, interactivity, and so on. But look, life is a lot easier if all you have to do, especially when your audience is online, which is what I've done to you. I didn't download my presentation. All I did was send you a link by clicking share. In this case, the presentation, because there's no private information, is public. And that's what I did. I sent a link to you. I could also make it private though. Sometimes you create a presentation, you only want very specific people to create it. Again, I say the word presentation. We actually call a general term project in Visme because everything you create is same. You could share it this way or that way. So I could share it privately. I could say, look, this is only restricted to specific people. I only want, for example, Lauren to view it, but I want her to comment it. So when I send her a link, she goes in, she can actually annotate and so on. And even in Visme, if you have team members, you can actually give editing access so they can open and edit it as well. You could also embed it to your own website. So let's say you create a presentation or infographic or it's animated. You don't have to download as MP4 or video. You can just embed it to your website, just like you would embed, let's say, a YouTube video. The list goes on, but it's so
I
in
think that's
short,
great. I
you
think
can
the
share it
testament
or
was
you
you
can
shared it
download
while
it.
you were
It
talking in the
depends on
presentation. You just
how
gave
you
us
want
the
to
link
present
real
it.
quick. I hate when you get a link or something, you have to download an application before you can
Yeah.
even open or use it. So I love it. Okay.
Actually, great point. There's something else I want to add in. I'm going to do this live for you right now. For those of you that are listening in and you got the link I put on the chat, right? Watch this. I'm going to come here and let's go ahead. I want to make, I'm going to actually go ahead and do this. So watch this. This is my presentation, the same one you have. You see, it says by payment type. Imagine you're creating a document or proposal for a client. You send them a proposal and you made a mistake on the amount. You emailed them the link to the document, say, hey, here's a proposal, there you go. And you made a mistake and that amount was supposed to be, $1,300 and you told them, $750. What do you have to do typically? You have to say, oh, I'm sorry, I sent you the wrong amount. Here's the updated amount. Nope.
That's
You
rich.
correct it. By the time they
really
look at it,
that.
they
And of
see the
course,
updated
if
information.
anybody
That's
else
what I
didn't
just did
trust
right now.
payment,
I actually
I
added
visited it real quick, and it changed immediately, right? So that is really cool because that would be we all make those mistakes, right? If we could only take back text now instead of letting those go back. Are you going to get into that next SMS where we can just edit text messages after the fact? So my last question before I turn it back over to you, unless we have another
maybe
one.
next on that one, yeah.
And it seems like everybody in the chat here loves this little change here.
Sure.
My last question is obviously you created a great presentation. You have a free course, if anybody doesn't know, on creating presentations and getting certified. What's the one tip? What's the biggest tip that you see where presentations and reports typically fail? Because we might not create them, if we're business owners and we're not corporate types, we might not create them regularly, but when we do create them, they're really important. They're for client deals, they're for investment, they're for, our bringing on maybe a founder. They're important decks to create. So what is something that you've seen when you're creating the course, when you're creating yours? What's something you can share with us, where they typically fail, where they fall short?
Number one is they have way too much information on a slide. In fact, I actually don't. The reason this slide is not my favorite, but I do it because I was presenting to you and just walking over it. So too much text on a slide, too much information is highly not recommended. Let's go to this one. This would be a better example. You focus on the key points and you focus on those and you eliminate all the other noise. That's number one. Number two, if you look here, even though there's all these nice visuals and so on, by the way, all these visuals are in Visme. Like we didn't bring anything from the outside. I'll show you in a second. But it's there to support the message. It's not just 5 other graphics sitting all around and so on. They're to be able to support that. The other part is data. Actually visualize the data. Focus on so let's say you're a startup and you're going for growth round and you need to get in front of investors. What are you going to do? You're going to show them just your churn numbers? No, you're going to make a big deal about your growth rate and so on. And you're going to show it on a chart that is like a hockey stick and so on. You're going to try to take advantage of that. So that would be, another recommendation. Now, in fact, there's something that we have in Visme, just we talked about startup investments, because we created a specific slide deck just for that use case. So if I may just do that and transition over and show you that. Look, in Visme, you create an account. I'm inside our own account right now. All types of projects here. So you can create anything that you want. And if you want it, you don't believe me, watch this. My son had a little homework and I created with him in Visme. See, it's not just a presentation tool. So see, I dropped this picture, removed the background, got all these characters. He wants to, the dog is his favorite friend. He wants to be a Lego master and a scientist. You see? That's like his assignment. And I printed it, downloaded as a PDF, printed it, and he took to school today. So you can do stuff like that. But our platform essentially allows you to create all types of content. I only focus on presentations. So anything, documents, charts, graphs, printables, and so on. And then we become this platform where like the Google Drive, where everything you create is in Visme. You can organize it, you can share it, you can put it into folders, and you can share the folders with other people in your team if you're a part of an organization. And you can actually individually, like I did with that one, I can come in and share it, very specific people to be able to view it and access it. to comment and annotate. Going a little bit further, Visme also, when I have that presentation, let's see here, visual brand strategy. Let me show you this. Watch this. We have what's called the data tab. Okay. So the presentations that you create, you're able to, brand strategy. You're able to, like, there it is. Look, I'm going to click this and go to analytics. Check this out. Look, this is today, right? This presentation was just created. 23 viewers, 41 total views. And on average, you guys, because I just sent you the link, you've only seen about 10% of it. And I can even go to the viewers. Look, I can see where you guys are. Somebody's in Trinidad, US, how much time you're spending per slide. Which slides did you look at? So we have complete annotation. That's another advantage that you can actually do, is you're able to use the analytics that's within Visme to track the engagement of the information that you create. Okay. Let me go back and mention about something we were on talking about investment index and so on. You create new project. I'm going to do presentation, because in Visme, this is a presentation tab. And if you come down here, we have these very cool looking slides. In fact, the presentation that I showed you was based, I think, on the modern one. It's just that the colors have been changed. And it's hundreds of slides. So for example, look, the startup pitch deck. I highly recommend that if you're a startup, or you're creating things for investment, or you're creating slide decks with more financial based information, you actually tap into this, because it gives you lots and lots of slides to create that. And we do this all over the place. We have other decks, but this is the one that's very specific for business. Coming up here, you can create anything that you want. So let's say documents, right? Charts and graphs. All you want is a very simple standalone chart. You could do that. So for example, here's one, and I could open it. Maybe it's for social media. Maybe that's what I want to do. And I can come in, I can use this template, and I can do exactly what I want to do. But because we're short in time, all I'm going to do is go back to this presentation, and I just want to do a couple of interactive things so you can see how easy it is that you can do that. All right. So again, you can create very simple things. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just right click on this, and I'm going to say change transition. Okay. And for the sake of, I like the way the presentation is set up, but I just want to do is I want to do this style. You see how everything is going to be. I'm going to show you a preview. This is just a preview of it. So what I wanted to do, or maybe what I want to do, is the zoom in. So I'm going to click the zoom in, and I want to only apply it to this slide. Okay. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to present it. Again, we're on a webinar, so it's not perfectly smooth. And you see, so there is the zoom in effect. In fact, guess what? It's already applied to the link that I put earlier on. You can actually see it for yourself. But I want to show you a couple more interactive things, right? Let's say that my purpose is, you know what, let's take a vote. Do you want me to make this slide interactive, or do you want me to just create a little quick social post for you and make it animated and actually even download a video?
I have a mic as well.
Let's
I'm
take a
jump
vote
in
here
because I think
the
social
what would you
aspect
guys like me to do?
is something that we're going to use regularly.
Tell me.
So yeah, looks like we got a lot of agreement here.
All right, let's do that. All right, let's do that again. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with one of the projects. Again, I hadn't really selected a template, so I'm just going to click here and go to this one. Okay, so let's do a quick little social graphic. Now I could search here, but the way our search is set up is not to search for a very specific template, but think about the type of thing you want to do. So for example, it would be good and say, hey, I want to do an infographic, informational, and so on. But I know what I want to do. I'm going to do a social graphic. So you can do it two ways. You could go to the social graphics category, or you could also go to video and GIFs. It's just that these are all can be used as social graphics. It's just that all of them are animated. So I'm going to go here. Let me back up. Like social graphics. Hey, I want to do Pinterest posts. All right, I want to do Instagram stories. I want to do the animated version. So we have a bunch of templates, you see? So there it is. So these are all animated, ready to go. Or the other way is I could have just gone to the videos and GIFs. And I think we have like Twitter video ads, for example, right? And then I click it, and then it comes in one size because that's the size that's recommended for Twitter, and I can edit it, okay? But let me back up here and just go to, let's say, Instagram video ads, Facebook. Let's say you want to do a Facebook video ad, all right? You want to actually promote your business. You want to do a social post as video, and you want to boost it. So let's go ahead and pick this one. Let's say simple, this one. All right. And now it says work remotely. All right. But that's not what it has to be about. You see, it's already got interactivity. If I go to different slides, it's got these videos, or in this case, these are images, and I could change them to videos, but I want to just very quickly make changes. So say it's not work remotely, you know, want design help. All right. And then I'm going to remove, let's say this is the logos you deserve an award for getting about. Let me design your next logo. You know, so I mean, just for the heck of simplicity, I'm going to just do this. And what I want to do is I want to actually bring some, I'm going to change this photo perhaps. I want to bring in instead a video. Look, I go to graphics, and let's go to media, and I want to go to videos, and I want to use something abstract, right? I want it to be very abstract. I'm going to go to animated backgrounds, and I'm going to find something maybe that's a little bit subtle. I mean, again, I'm not going to spend time to really looking for it, but I'm just going to go ahead and drag this one in. Okay, I just want to show you. So I'm going to make it as big as I want. And so it becomes the background. So let's go ahead and remove this one and right click, move it all the way to the back. And I don't have to do anything else if I don't want to. Okay, but I'm going to do something else. Let me go ahead and now one line. There it is. But I want to bring in, because it's talking about design, I want to bring in an accent element. So here's what I'm going to do. Watch this. In Visme, we have lots and lots of icons and graphics. Yes, we got characters and all those things. Maybe I'll put it in the next slide, since we have a couple minutes. But we have these 3D graphics. And check this out. You know, we're talking about design. So I just want something. Let's go to the hands. And I'm going to go here. And each of these has a certain purpose. They're a little bit abstract. So you can basically, you know, think about which one. So here, you want design help. So maybe what I do is I'm going to bring this one in and stick it to the very corner here. Okay. And the color is very dark on the shirt. Check this out. In Visme, everything can be changed. Have you seen another program out there that allows you to put a 3D object and yet change the color of the arm or whatever it is that you want to do? There isn't one out there that I know of. So you can actually do that. And you could start being more, you know, interactive. So let's go ahead, bring this down. And what I want to do is I want this arm to animate. And I want it to kind of come from the top, or maybe I want it to bounce. Let's see here. We have fly from the top or appear like that. Yeah, let's do that. By the way, I don't know if we got any designers there that really have design experience. For those of you that are designers, we have custom. So one of the things with Visme, I'm not going to go over it, is that we give you the ability. It's like we're like an onion. You start peeling the levels, and this thing goes pretty deep. Or what's the matrix? You take this bill and show you how deep it goes. That's kind of like that. We have very subtle interface, but there's things you just have to look for it. So the challenge I always tell people is when you use something like Visme, is to take a little bit more time to get to know it, because you're going to find all sorts of stuff.
I forget my brand colors. I forget the Pantone colors. I forget where my logo is stored on the drive, or somebody's doing this for me. Mm-hmm. You know, how do I get that into here? You know, I want to make the yeah.
Sure. Let me show you something. So I didn't think we have enough time to do that, but let me go back. Okay. You go to your area on your admin area. I'm sorry, your login area. You go to my brand. Okay. And you could literally click the brand wizard. I'm not going to do that right now. And you enter your website and you go through it literally 30 seconds to a minute. And what happens is you will get all your branding and so on detected, like your logo, your fonts, your colors, all that's there. So I'm going to show you. I've already got the Visme colors detected. So anytime I want to, I can go inside the editor. So let's say you see this one, this color here, and say, no, that needs to be a Visme brand color. And so anytime I do that, I go down, see, there's a Visme primary colors. It follows me everywhere I go. So your colors are always there. And the other thing is that not just that, but as you, or maybe you get like a team plan, 2-3 users in your small business to use Visme instead of any other tool. Hey, we can do your documents, graphics, everything we want. We can do this one tool for one flat fee. You also have what's called a My File section, so that as you upload photos and images, you're able to use those. You want to know? Look, Here's my son right here, because I was doing a graphic yesterday and he's there because I created a design and one of my colleagues was creating another design or something. And so I can go and grab what he or she had uploaded. So you have a file manager waiting for you, which you can do to folders and so on. So everything you need, your projects are stored in Visme. What you open and you upload sits in the My Files area. Your colors are always there and consistent. They follow you everywhere you go, and so on and so on. The list goes on. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time because we're running out, but let's say that I'm done with this. How would I do that? Okay, let's just say I'm going to do, I finished doing my updates. So, well, let me go ahead and share the link with you, because in this case, I haven't downloaded it, but let me go ahead and here. Okay, not done, so that you know that it's not done, but it's published. Or what I could do is I could share this link to my social media. But again, if I do that as my social media, it will post the link to it with a preview of the image. Okay, so I can do that. You see, when they click, they're going to go to the link I just sent you. If you want to actually download it and put it on your social, then what you do is you just go to download, as I showed you earlier. In this case, it's a video. So I'm going to go to video and I'm going to click download. By the way, look, you could even download directly to Google Drive. If you're a MailChimp, like, hey, I want to put my graphics on my HubSpot and so on, you could do that. But in this case, to my PC, it starts downloading it. This one is it's going to probably take about a couple minutes or so to download, and it gives you that or emails you when the file is done. You take the file, drop it in your social, and then you go on. And by the way, so you see, that's what I just created. You have the link. It's even got audio background and so on as well. You can listen to it because we add audio to our our videos as well and so on. Alrighty, I'm going to cut it short here. I could speak for an hour or two, but I hope that you guys get a feel of that. Any of you guys can create interactive content. Oh, can I touch on one more thing? I got one more minute before you go. Look. Let's say that you are creating a graphic and you want people to go to a certain link. So let's say like this. I'm going to take this object and I want to give this an action. So remember, I was doing a presentation and had actions on it. So this is not for you to post it on Facebook, because Facebook you're going to download as an image or whatever. But if you want a link, or as I did a presentation that had interactivity, here's what I want to do. When people click on this, I'm going to say visit site. Visit Visme, okay? Maybe that's all it is. Again, don't worry about the color. I want people to click on this and go to the Visme site. How do I do that? Every single object in Visme can have an action. So I want this to go to a website or email or social, but I want to go to a website. You type your website address in, open a new window, and I'm going to apply it, okay? And you see, it knows that it's got an action. I'm going to do one more action for you. Here, what I want to do is when somebody clicks on this, I want to show this photo. Okay, so imagine you could do this with widgets and all sorts of stuff. Like I didn't even talk to you about Visme. You can do, you know what? Here, I'll just do a chart. Here's what I want to do. When somebody clicks on here, I know this is not pretty yet. I haven't done any styling on it because in Visme you can do all sorts of stuff. So let's say that. So when somebody clicks on this, I want to show the chart. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I click on the object, actions, and I go to what's called pop-up. And I just search for the chart. You see, that's the one. Unclick, I want you to show that. By the way, I sent you guys the link already so you can actually see that working for yourselves, because remember, everything is live. So you see, new website. And then on this one, I said unclick, show the chart. You see? So you can do interactivity just like that. It's as simple as literally click on an object, decide what action you want to do it. You can get creative as you want with it. Alrighty, that's all I have.